come. Here they come. Here they come. Is that Valerie? All right, would the meeting please come to order? We have a quorum. Where are they? Where were they?
I thought Janet got them. She thought.
Oh. All right, we'll go ahead and do some other stuff. Who's picking them up?
Shamika's bringing them over right now.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we have, I think we do have a quorum. If you would, if y'all all would, Randy, would you please open with prayer, if you don't mind? It's number 22. So.
Number 22. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for blessings you give to us. Lord, we thank you that you have chosen us for this role to be as servants to the people of the state. And just pray now that you would bless us as we deliberate. Lord, help us to make good decisions for the young people in our state who depend upon us as we depend upon you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much. All right. Do we have anyone in the audience today that's never been here before? This is your first visit. Okay. How about, do we have any teachers here today, or principals or superintendents? Please stand up and introduce yourself. No one? Hey, this is a rarity not to have any of that group. All right. I'll tell you what we are going to do. I'd like for you to, if you have not, your committee dues now, we're getting near the end of the session, and we do have some expenses, and anyone who have not, I'm going to ask Janet to give Tommy the list and ask Tommy to come and meet you in the hall in the anteroom and take care of, collect the dues. They're only $25. That's not bad. So what do you get for $25 today? You get to be a member of this caucus. It's wonderful. And also, is Josh out there, Josh Mackey? All right. Janet, can you maybe tell us about our committee dinner? That's when? And
as far as I know, it is scheduled for.
What's your number over there? Number? All right, number 1. All right, Masher. There you go.
As far as I know, it's scheduled for March 23rd at
right.
6 o'clock at Agave.
And you've had how many? You've had a good many respond, haven't you?
About 50%.
And if you haven't responded, please see Janet and let her know if you're planning to attend, because we need to make reservations. See Janet, and she'll put it down. It'll be a lot of fun. I've never been there, and I think several of the group, people are helping Josh sponsor that. There's several of you, and we appreciate what you've done to help sponsor that for us. One thing I'd like to do at this time, if I could, the governor, I see India, we're really glad you're here with us today. We appreciate it. Have all of you, I hope you've all met her. India, stand up and introduce yourself. I think everybody's met you, but they may not have. And tell us a little bit about you.
I'm the governor's education policy advisor. So if you ever need anything on that front, please continue.
All right, now we had asked for some information today from the office. Did you get our information we asked for? We'd asked to comment on the national board, and we'd ask Aaron to be here, somebody from our office, to talk to us about where they see the National Board of Certification fitting into the Race to the Top. That program. Are you ready? Did you rather not comment? Could you come to the microphone where we can hear you? Sorry. Thank you. And you may need, I think it's on, you can check. Yeah, go ahead.
Erin was unable to comment on that today, but she will sometime in the near future.
Okay, what we're wanting to know, we're just trying to decide, because there was a piece of legislation last meeting that we passed that wanted to let the people know that the legislature tends to honor their commitment to go ahead with that 10% salary increase and to recognize the program. And we're just wondering if they had talked about how that would fit into the future, because we have these teachers, how are we going to use that? So, very good. Thank you so much. All right. Anything else you want to say to us? While we're waiting on our legislation, we're going to let you just say anything you want.
Everyone has a fantastic rest of the day.
All right, good. Hey, that's a way to go. All right, good. Very good. All right. Janet, do we have them yet?
No, sir, we do not.
Who's picking? All right, at this time I'd like to ask David if he'd go ahead and assign our legislation that we have, new legislation, go ahead and sign it to the various subcommittees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Education Committee has received House Bill 452 by Representative Battles. This is on student transportation. It's revising some provisions there. That's being assigned to academic support. And we have also received House Resolution 497. Now, I want to inform members of the committee that, as you received in your notice, that House Resolution 45961 489, 491, and 492 will be taken up today, and we will be debating them in full committee. But House Resolution 497 by Representative Purcell on adopting policies to prohibit tobacco use is being assigned to academic support. And, Mr. Chairman, that is all the legislation we've received.
Okay. As you know, we have probably one.
I'm just going to hand them out. It's not going to be by name.
That's okay. Just hand them out. It won't necessarily be by names. I want you to know that we have one more meeting. That we have, if we have to, we'll have one more meeting, because we've got to get legislation out before the last day. In order, it's going to have to come out by Monday. We're letting the people in the audience know too. It's going to have to be out by Monday, where we can get it into rules and get it on the calendar for the 30th day. And crossover day is going to be Wednesday. And so all legislation will have to be passed Monday. We'll have to do it early where we can get it in, and then it'll have to be sent to rules and really heard. I'm sure that it may not have a supplemental calendar for Wednesday. So we may not be able to get it all across. We don't know, but we hope so. So just stay tuned. Look up in there in our office. Check our bulletin board. We'll let you know if we're going to have another meeting. Yeah. We're not by name, so just take what you got and enjoy it. All right. And any notes that are written in it, you have to keep it secret. Don't tell all the notes, the secrets that are written in there. All right. So at this time, without any further delay, we'll go ahead and take up the agenda. What I would like to do, Amy, are you here? So I'd like for you to, if you would, to coordinate this next section, because they came from your study committee this summer, I think, didn't they? And I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about the study committee and talk about these resolutions and call on your sponsors of these resolutions to present them. And I promised Representative Thomas that he could be the first one. So, yes, where he won't. That way, if he does well, we won't criticize him. All right. What's your number? I'm number 24. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We formed a House study committee over the summer on professional learning. It was formed to study the state of professional learning in Georgia and its relationship to certificate renewal, and to make recommendations for improvements while we waived that 5-year requirement for teachers to have the PLUs in place. And from that, we came up with 11 recommendations, and we had 5 that we felt very strongly about, so we formed resolutions to address each one of those 5. And I have found 4 wonderful people who are willing to carry this, since I get to be the agent of the governor, and I don't have a lot of time, so I found 4 wonderful people who are willing to carry this. And I'm going to call on the first one to be Representative Thomas. He brings before us House Resolution 489.
You have the right to stay there, or you have a right to go down. What would you like to do? I would like for you to go down, if you would. All right, we're going to make this formal. Yes, all right. So, do these, Representative Carter, do these need to be to go to the Senate also, so they need to come across, or is this just House resolution?
Well, I feel like most of the parties who are involved in these resolutions, being the Department of Ed and the Professional Standards Commission, are on board with us. So I'm not certain that we'll have to take it to both places. I think we'll be okay if we get them out of the House, and I think we're all on board for this. So
okay. All right, Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's my honor to actively embrace the recommendations of the study committee and present to you House Resolution 489. As Representative Carter indicated, the study committee looked at a lot of different things over the summer, and among those things was teachers currently have to take a certain number of professional learning units, or PLUs, as they are referred to. And we've suspended some of that because of budgetary concerns. But the question came up, what is the best mechanism by which these PLUs really should be offered and teachers should engage in them? One of the concerns was that, and I'm sure we've all done this in all walks of life, gone to some type of required training, and you go and you sit in a classroom for 8 or 10 hours trying to stay awake. And maybe you get something out of it, but maybe it's not the most effective way of improving your performance in your job. And that was a concern that we had about teachers and PLUs. And so what the study committee realized was that professional learning best occurs in a job-embedded environment. And so what this resolution does, and some of the findings you'll see on page 1, and I won't go through those line by line. I think you all can skim that and get a sense of what the committee came up with in terms of findings. But the meat of it is on page 2, beginning on line 27, section 1. And what we are asking first is that the Board of Education should revise its professional learning rules. And we want these rules to dovetail with what the PSC, the Professional Standards Committee, is also promulgating. And they're in the process of revising their requirements based on some recent research findings, which seem to suggest that doing this type of professional education is best done in the classroom. And so if you move down to section 3, what we're asking is that the Department of Education put together a professional learning rules task force in order to review the professional learning rules and try and dovetail these with current research. And it lists out who should be part of that task force. And I didn't notice my name on there, but that was probably just an oversight. But put together a task force to evaluate the best way to ensure that when teachers are going through this required professional development process, that we're doing it in a way that really benefits students and their learning. Ultimately, that's the goal. This isn't about having teachers take courses just to learn more. It's about allowing them to improve the way that they educate our students. And in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, that is what this House resolution entails.
So basically you're saying we're going to ask them to create this task force to look at this, all right?
Yes,
Do we
sir.
have any questions? I don't see. I see 2 on. All right, number 22, you have a question? If you'll go ahead and...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question on line 41, the end of the line that says providing suggestions. Can you tell me how we're going to do that? Are we going to do that by tweet, email? Are we going to do it by email, letter?
I'm sorry, Representative, what is tweet?
Tweet.
Well, fortunately,
I'm putting you on because you do that to me, but I had to take a shot at it.
I appreciate that.
Number 23.
I'll try and put the deer in the headlights look on a little bit better.
Representative Maxwell.
What? That's how you usually get me, deer in the headlight. I think I have a serious question on page 3. The dates on this. We've got a July the 1st, 2013. We'd like to have the recommendations, and then we're going to give them another 2 years. I guess that's because we got the 5-year. Okay, I just answered my question. Thank you, Representative Thomas.
Yes, sir. Happy to be of service.
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you.
Representative Carter, you want to comment?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did relax these rules for 5 years, and so by delaying it till 2013, it's not a big deal because we're going to have several years after that before it's in effect. But I appreciate you, Representative Thomas, bringing this forward because I myself, as a high school teacher, have sat through many hours of PLU training and felt like I walked away having wasted a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate that you have come forward with this outstanding resolution, which will create the task force, which will look into the right ways to give us that continuing education that we definitely need. So thank you very much for this resolution.
Thank you, Madam Floor Leader. I'm very happy to embrace this very well-written resolution, and I'm sure that it's successful.
One thing I will do that we don't normally do in this committee, since this did not go through subcommittee, it was the chairman's prerogative to put it here because it's got to go through. Is there anyone in the audience that feels you must say something? You have 30 seconds. Anyone feels they must say something? Raise your hands. Anyone in the audience feel they want to say something about this resolution? If not, Representative Dash, I entertain your motion. What's number you?
I'm number 18.
All right.
With great pleasure, I move due pass.
Do I have a second? I have a due pass and a second. Any discussion? If not, we'll move forward the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the sign no. It does pass unanimously. Representative Thomas, you go to rules and get it out, my friend. It's yours. It'll be there Monday, all right? Next, Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm moving on to House Resolution 492. This one will be presented by Representative Clark. And 92 is the one that goes along with it. Right? Let's see.
Okay.
She will be present. I actually took her out of order. My goal was to ask her to come up first and then have Representative Thomas, but this one kind of goes along with what Representative Thomas just did.
All right. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Chairman Coleman, and Chairman Coleman, Vice Chairman Casas, and members of this committee. This resolution comes, again, from the results of the House Committee on Professional Learning, spearheaded by the Governor's floor leader, Amy Carter, and from the Georgia Professional Standards Commission, Dr. Kelly Henson and Mr. Mark Peavy. The resolution directs the Professional Standards Commission to establish certification renewal rules. This is when a teacher gets renewed in her certificate or his certificate that look at the impact of professional learning on teacher performance and student learning. So not only do you just go, again, as Mr. Stevens said, that you also look at the impact on professional learning. It also directs the Commission to establish a task force to determine the evidence that you need to look at for educators to demonstrate their impact. And the task force will also determine how the evidence will be collected and how it will be submitted for the teacher to submit for renewal of their certificate. The goal of professional learning is higher student achievement. Research shows that well-designed professional learning can improve, practice, and increase student achievement. It should be intensive, it should be ongoing, and it should be connected to practice. It should be focused on student learning, and it should focus on curriculum content. Georgia's Race to the Top is a plan that requires measuring teacher effectiveness, and it also states that effectiveness of teachers will be improved through targeted professional learning, not just everyday professional learning, but targeted professional learning. The bottom line is we want to help teachers to be better teachers through the best professional learning experiences possible. And we want their experiences to target student achievement. And for the best outcome for our children and our young adults, this resolution directs the Professional Standards Commission, with the Commission's own blessings, to revise certification rules to require that demonstration of the impact of professional learning, and also that teacher training would have to impact both teacher performance and student performance. It has another directive, and this directive is that the Professional Standards Commission establish a task force to determine what evidence is necessary for teachers to demonstrate the impact of professional learning and how this evidence will be collected. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your favorable response to House Resolution 492.
I can see, Reverend Carter, how that would precede and would go right along with the other.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What happened, we wrote both of these, and they're both directing resolutions. Representative Clark directs the Professional Standards Commission, and then Representative Thomas's directs the State Board of Education.
Right.
They go together, hand in hand, and the task force was listed on Representative Thomas's. But this is a joint effort on behalf of both of these agencies.
Okay.
And
Do I have any
Representative, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
I was just going to say Representative Thomas did such an able job of introducing what the job of the committee this summer, since he was part of that committee. So thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Do I have any questions? I do not have any questions from the committee. Anyone in the audience feel you need to say something? Please do. Don't feel frightened. I will not chastise you. All right. If we're not, I do have a motion. Representative Ash, I have you.
I move do pass.
I have a do pass. Do I have a second? Any questions? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, indicate by saying no. All right. It does pass unanimously. All right. Representative Clark, you want to do your second one?
I will.
And that is Resolution 491, okay?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, and I bring to you House Resolution 491. This resolution comes from the results, again, from this same committee, and again, spearheaded by Amy Carter, the floor leader, and from Dr. Kelly Henson. The resolution encourages the development of coaching. This is performance-based coaching programs, and these coaching programs are for principals, district administrators, and for teacher leaders. The purpose of coaching would be to develop administrator skills to help teachers. The bottom line is that teachers perform better when they have an opportunity to practice in the workplace. Coaching helps them to practice better in the workplace. The resolution speaks to training of administrators and teacher leaders to be coaches, and this provides a win-win situation. The administrator and the teacher leader receives this specific training and coaching. In turn, they can use this training to work with teachers so that teachers can practice in their classrooms. So teachers are better able to practice their craft with the benefit of coaching. And so, colleagues, I hope that you will have a favorable response to House Resolution 491.
All right, do I have any questions? All right. Representative Ash, you have a question.
This one strongly encourages.
Yes.
The others direct.
Yes.
Do I ask you why this is only encouragement and not direction?
May I let Representative Carter respond, because since she's the committee, unless you want to, Representative Clark.
Okay, I'm on.
You're
Thank
on.
you. Mark, do you mind coming up and we're all on board here as far as getting these things done. So it was really
Stay
a matter
there, Representative Clark. Just stay there. Yeah.
of Betsy. Is Betsy back there? She and Kelly were behind the scenes doing this. Is there a major difference between strongly encouraging and directing?
There's a very big difference, and the language is based on the recommendations, as I was reading them, and Kelly provided a lot of this language. But a joint resolution that directs an agency to do something that's passed by both houses and signed by the governor has the force and effect of law. So a resolution, however, just strongly urging, simply does that. So there's a very big difference in the effect of them.
Okay.
What do you think? Do y'all want it encouraged or directed?
Regardless of whether it's encouraged or directed, we're going to take it as a directive.
You're going to take it as a directive. Okay, you're going to do it. Does that answer your question, Representative Van?
Yes, thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Any other questions from the committee? If not, anyone in the audience have a comment or a question? All right, I'll entertain a motion. I have a move to pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, no. It's unanimous. All right, Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to bring up next Representative Ash, who will present House Resolution 461.
Good job, young lady.
You did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is another piece of that package, and this is the piece that asks the Department of Education and the Professional Standards Commission to jointly develop a course on educator ethics that includes information about the Georgia Code of Ethics for Educators and has as one of its main areas of emphasis the practice of administering tests. This is just a set of skills that we need to be sure Georgia educators are up to speed on, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
I think that's a good one, timely one. All right, any questions from the committee? Any comments, Representative Carter?
This is a necessary piece also. It never hurts to remind the teachers, even annually, about the ethics that we signed up for as educators. So
I know what they are, yeah.
Very excited about this.
And all of these pieces are in place. This is just making sure that this happens in a cooperative
That they know about
way.
it. Very good. All right, any comments from the audience? Any questions or comment from the audience? I have a motion to pass. Do I have a second? Second. All, any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say no. All right, it does pass. All right,
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Carter. Thank you, Representative Ash. Your last piece, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the last but certainly not least of our resolutions would be House Resolution 459, which will be sponsored by Representative Dudgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a freshman, I got the resolution that's already done, so it'll be easier for me. Actually, this is the resolution commending and strongly supporting the Professional Standards Commission for a ruling they did in December. And that ruling essentially is clarifying the certificate upgrade process so that upgrades are not given to teachers who get degrees which are not useful or related to their field of study. And it also does a little bit of clarification to make sure that teachers are not getting degrees from fly-by-night or basically degree mill online institutions that really don't have any kind of learning. This was done in December, and their process of rolling this out right now. They've had lots of clarification and easy-to-understand documents for the teachers. Very important point is it was grandfathered in so that the current teachers who have these degrees, there's no going back in the past and trying to say that to change the rules after we've already played the game. But moving forward, we'll be under the new set of rules. Some interesting numbers real quickly. They estimate, the PSC estimates about $70 million a year is being compensated for teachers who have leadership certificates that are not being used, and about $800 million in total compensation for advanced degrees. We want our teachers to get advanced degrees. We want them to do well. We encourage the right part of this, but we also don't want teachers to get compensated in tough budget times for something that really is not worthwhile. This has already been done, but anytime you touch teacher compensation, you know you always have a little bit of controversy, and we want to make sure the PSC knows that we're 100% behind them. That I would ask for your favorable consideration and certainly answer any questions.
Very good, and there's a lot of comments. So I have a question. I'll let Representative Carter, you want to make a comment before we have a question? All right, I have a question 14. That's Reverend Setzler, and then I have 23. I'll be with you, Representative. All right.
To the gentleman, rather than haze you I'll just ask you a serious question.
Yes, sir.
No, the Professional Standards Commission has acted, and
yes.
we're sort of by this affirming that.
Yes.
But they could also unact and undo what they've done. Isn't it true that if this was a direction, and this is certainly open for discussion, if we wanted to put some force behind this moving forward, would this not be why would this not be better crafted as a direction? Yes.
My guess,
moving forward.
Yeah, my guess would be because the specifics of what you're directing are pretty complicated, and that rule is very, very long, and they took a lot of effort to be very careful about what they were saying and the grandfathering and so forth. So I don't know.
And plus the fact I'd like to say this, we
Yeah.
look at the QB study and look at the salary component.
Yeah.
We look at the race to the top and all. I think there'll be a lot of discussion on that. And you're going to hear a bill in a few minutes that's dealing with several things we're going to be looking at to try to deal with this. So I think as we go forward, you may see some changes or you may see some other comments. But at this time, I think the directive is you've been under, Representative Carter, was to go ahead and do some of this, and we're just commending what they've done. Is that correct?
May want to speak on behalf of the PSC regarding the rule and
right.
and how that change came about and if there's any undoing to be done.
All right, let him do that, okay? To get with this question, all right? Please identify yourself and tell everyone. I mean, I know, but be sure everybody knows who you are.
I'm Mark Peavy with the Professional Standards Commission. We've spent quite a bit of time crafting this rule. We feel that it is a good rule, and we have gotten very, very much favorable response to this rule. We do not foresee changing this rule. We believe this is the right approach, the right direction, and it is already in effect. So.
And I do also, Mark, would you comment on the fact that the degree mills, I think it's good that they put some restrictions on especially the virtual, what they're doing, trying to see that they are reputable and they meet the high standards that we expect for our teachers. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In our way of thinking of it, what we're focusing on here is rigor and relevance. The rigor is the part that deals with making sure that the institutions that we will be giving certificate upgrades based on degrees are reputable, that have high standards, that are meeting some very stringent accreditation
right.
and ratings by the Carnegie Foundation.
Right.
That's the rigor piece. And the relevance piece is to make sure that those degrees match up with what teachers are currently doing, or if they have a plan to begin working in another, say, subject area. If they're a mathematics teacher and they want to pick up physics, then they can get an advanced degree in physics and then add that certificate to their, or add that field, excuse me, to their certificate. And we will give them an upgrade, provided, of course, that that degree was earned at one of those institutions that meet the rigor requirement.
I like what you said. That's what Representative Nix has been saying, his rigor and relevance, and his bill too, so I like that. That's good. Y'all must have been going to the same school. That's a good one. All right. Any other questions? All right, Representative Maxwell.
I really appreciate this. Because former school board member, I've seen this for years, and we fought that battle. I know Representative did too. But now we did this in December. It was effective in the end of the year. So degrees that's come up, or what about those that were in the degree process? Those are grandfathered in.
Yes, they're grandfathered in. The people are in the middle of their degree right now.
Okay, but going forward, nobody can take new courses from December, the end of December of this year forward, and automatically get an advancement in pay then.
That's what I understand, right?
It's grandfathered in.
Yeah.
There's a phased-in approach that they have to get enrolled by a certain time period, and they have to complete the degree by a certain time period in order to be grandfathered in.
Okay.
And if they miss either one of those, then they fall under the new rule.
Okay.
Like the new rule. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, anyone from the audience, while I stay up there, anyone in the audience have a question or comment? I see none. I see no more questions. Do I have a motion? I have a motion to pass. Do I have a second? And second, any questions or discussion? If none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed by no. It's unanimous. All right, Amy, Representative Carter, you did well. You got all of them through unanimously. Now, let me say to this. I do see this. I asked the question earlier what we want to do with these, but I'm going to say something. I see the joint resolutions, as you mentioned. I think it was, I'm not sure, but I'd like to see these go to rules and move forward. I think we need to, don't you? If you don't mind, go ahead and ask Betsy. Betsy, what do you think we need to do? We need to take it to the Senate, don't you think?
If you want it to have the force of effective law, yes.
I think we should. So I'm going to ask all of the sponsors, and I'll ask Amy to get with our rules chairman. She has a lot of input and a lot of impact and a lot of power. No. Who's on rules in this committee? All right, Reverend Setzer, you help us out. Any more rules members? Tommy, you're on the rules. If y'all would help us to talk to chairman, I'll talk with him. Amy and I'll go see him because I'd like to see these moved. And and these are something I think we could move right on out. So, Janet, they'll go in today. Is that correct? Recess to 5, so if we could, I'd get these in. So, all right, number 14, Representative Setzer, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm just trying to be practical here. Is there any real reason these couldn't be consolidated into one resolution that could move through the process? I mean, just in terms of time, in terms of the way the Senate Rules Committee operates, multiple propositions become.
I'll refer that to Representative Carter.
Well, Dr. Henson and I did talk about a single resolution, but we were afraid that possibly the committee would not feel that would be the way to go. But we'll be glad to consolidate if Betsy's in favor of that.
Betsy, give us a comment.
Yeah, that's no problem. I mean, as long as you specify which ones you wanted just to do the 3 directing ones, consolidate those, or, I mean, I wouldn't probably mix the directing with the
Urging, right.
And the supporting.
Okay.
Right.
Could you make them all directing? No. No, because we passed it as urgent. I got you right.
Yeah, the PSC's already done.
Right, you don't need to. So you would say the 3 directing you put in 1. Is that what you're recommending, Representative Setzler?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I was just trying to, to the point I made to Representative Dudgeon, I mean, the practicality of the process.
Yeah, getting it through. So what I will do at this time, if Representative Carter, if you like that, if I could get a motion, we could instruct Betsy to make the 3 directing ones into one resolution. If y'all will trust us, I think it would be good to put them together, and then the 2 urging ones to put together, and so we'll have 2 resolutions. Is that what we're saying?
Mr. Chairman, I could make that in the form of a motion.
Would
if you
you
wanted to consider that?
Would you do that?
Yep.
Say it.
It looks like there would be three because one of them is
Oh,
supporting.
that's right, 3.
One is strongly encouraging,
right.
and then 3 are directing. We can consolidate certainly the 3 directing,
All right.
and then just make it 3 instead of 5. Would that be okay?
Yes. So why don't you make the recommendation then, Representative Carter? Why don't you
Okay. I want to make the recommendation that we consolidate.
make it in form of motion, excuse me.
I'd like to make a motion to consolidate House Resolution 461, 489, and 492.
Under 491, 492.
Okay.
All right, 492.
Under 492, which 489 is the one with all the task force members listed. Would that be the better one?
Is that okay with you, Representative Clark?
Okay.
Okay with you, Representative Thomas, to carry
Either
it?
way.
All right, so let's put it under that one then.
Either way. Okay.
All right.
And then the other two
Let's
will
take
stand
that
as-
right now. Let's take
Okay,
that
I'm
one.
sorry.
All right, we have a recommendation that we consolidate the 3 directing resolutions, and give me the numbers again, 491, 489,
It's actually 492,
492,
489,
489,
461.
and 461 into one resolution, and let it fall under House Resolution 489. That's
Correct.
All right. Do I have a second? Any discussion? Any discussion?
I think it's better to have Valerie carry this.
All right. Representative.
Therefore, making it House Resolution 492.
Yes, sir. Speak up.
I just wanted to ask the Minority Caucus Chair if he felt like there might be some reasons that Representative Clark, I mean,
I think he could do a great job.
Gentlemen.
Me too.
I think he'd do an excellent job.
Mr. Chairman, I just, as we come down to the wire, I don't want
I know.
an important proposition get caught up in
Politics.
partisan politics. on the
I
floor,
don't
so.
see that on this one, but I'll yield to the committee.
And I will yield to the discretion of people who know better.
I mean, yeah. Comments?
Well-
Any comments? I will make a decision, but I'm
Yeah, I'll certainly go to bat.
I'll go to bat too.
And Representative Clark has 491 in play already. So
She's going to be doing anyway. All right, we have a recommendation and a second. Now, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, I was just asking the question for the good of the order.
Yeah, I know.
Is there, I mean, he's.
I think it would be fine. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and I will go to bat for him and go to rules with him. All right, and Valerie Clark's going, and Representative Clark's going. So let's all have a motion, second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And we what? Make a commitment. That's right. All right. Now, give us your second recommendation.
yeah, the other. The
Just
other
leave
two
them
are-
as we are.
Yeah.
The other two bets we just leave as they are, right? That's good. All right, we've done it. Okay, it's done. Thank you, Representative Carter.
Thank you.
Anybody have a question? Good job. All right. Shh. Everybody understand where we are and what we've done? We have 3 resolutions. Representative Thomas has one that's combined 3 into 1. We have Representative Clark is carrying hers through, and who's the other one? You have Dudgeons has his. So 3 resolutions. We'll go to rules. Amy and I will meet with the rules chairman tomorrow and talk about these, and we'll try to get them out because I think it's critical. All right. Now, the next order of business, I'd like to ask the chair of our Academic Support Committee to please give a report and recommendations from his subcommittee. Yes. No, that's okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a great 2-hour meeting on Tuesday. We actually heard 4 pieces of legislation and passed out 3. We passed out House Bill 305, House Bill 267, and House Bill 257. We carried over House Bill 310, which was Representative Hughley's bill on cyberbullying. So we passed out 3 bills.
So which one you want to take up first?
I had put Representative Stevens on top, but
Is he here?
I don't see.
If he's not here, we're not going to move it. Well, we're not going to move it then.
Okay.
You want to present it? All right, Representative. Pardon? Wait a minute. Pardon? Did he ask you to present it? Said to hold it. Okay. Yeah. Let's just hold it. They're in a discussion. All right, we'll hold it and we'll take it up Monday then. All right. What's the next piece you have?
Representative Jones, House Bill 267.
Representative Jones, is she here?
There she is.
All right. If you'll come forward and present your bill. Tell us, could you? All right, Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of the committee. I have House Bill 267 that passed the subcommittee yesterday by way of substitute, and we're asking that at the start of each school year that the students are educated on the dangers of sending text containing explicit images. And this last year was introduced as a resolution that passed unanimously out of your subcommittee as well as the full committee, and received the support of GAE, Georgia PTA, as well as the Department of Education. And I do have with me a letter of support today from the Georgia Association of Educators. And I'm asking for your favorable motion of due pass and your favorable consideration of this bill.
Reverend Jones, I think it'd be very important for you to talk about the change. If you look that the State Department is going to develop, I understand, the program. Is that correct?
Yes,
and
sir.
send it out to the schools,
That's
and then
correct.
they're to offer this their way. They can decide, each local system, how they want to present the material.
Right, it will be uniform across the state.
The information will be uniform, but the
yes.
local systems can decide how they do it, right?
They're going to decide, they're going to do it age appropriate.
Right.
So all of the 4th graders through 12th graders will not be in the same class or
Right.
assembly or whatever setting the
However
school
they
chooses
decide.
to get.
And then the last section that parents can request not
To
to be,
opt out.
for the children to be opt-out.
That's correct.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Any questions? I see none, so I have a motion. Number 27? 27. Who is that?
Should be 28. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. 28.
Oh, 28, I'm sorry, okay.
I just had a question about the
Yes.
language on line 15.
All right.
Featuring explicit images. I'm assuming we're talking about images that are inappropriate, and so why are we using the word explicit?
Okay.
I'll let you speak to the author. Speak to that.
This, when it came up, we had the word sexting in the bill, which is what we called it, but I respected the request of the educators who did not want the word sexting to be placed in the bill. So Legislative Council, the educators, that's what we came up with.
And when she says educators, is that
I mean,
the committee or was
departments, the GAE and the
Okay.
PTA, they were all in support of that because
Okay.
the way I had it drafted up, I had sexting.
Sexing, yes. Okay.
Yeah, SEXTING, which is what it's called.
All right. You want to pursue that any further?
Would we want something along the lines of maybe lewd or inappropriate or I'm trying to, but explicit deals with an express nature of language. So that was what I'm not sure. Sexually explicit, perhaps, maybe. My confusion is that I don't know how to enforce this. If I'm a school board or I'm a administrative officer, I don't know how to enforce a featuring explicit images, because any image might be determined to be explicit.
Betsy, could you address that? Help us.
I mean, we can describe that however you want. It's not going to be up to each local board, though, to determine that. The Department of Education is going to be developing the program, so they will be able to...
They'll tell them what that is.
That, to me, is sort of an understood term, but maybe if people have different ideas of it, if you have it can be whatever makes sense to y'all.
What you were saying, is this correct, Betsy, that this department would decide what that means and they would send out the interpretation?
Well, I mean, they're the ones that's going to be developing the program.
Right. So they would decide, yeah.
By virtue of that, they're going to have to, define that somehow.
Yeah. But unless we wanted to find it here, and you have, I mean, it's your committee. You can make you want to make a motion? I mean, it's up to you. Yeah. You want to say, because it's up. Yes. You make a comment, right?
22.
All right.
And I would assume that this would probably include things like the kids not too long ago that got caught crushing the animals and things. Would that not be an explicit thing that you would not want to have in there?
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The big thing went around, torturing
animals. Some students were.
Yeah. So I don't. Are we just talking about sexual natured pictures?
As I introduced it, that's what I was talking about, sexting, but they did not want the sex to be in here, so that's what Legislative Council came up with that word, and it worked last year through the sub and the full committee.
Yeah. And that's why I thought explicit might cover more bases even than that. So.
Okay, 28, and I'm coming to the over here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking up the definition of explicit, and it would pertain to nudity or sexuality, but not to the issues that Chairman Nix has raised. And I would suggest that I would make the motion that we amend. Now, you haven't actually called for a motion on this.
No, I haven't called for it. We're discussing.
I would just suggest that we go with inappropriate images and let them define that as they see fit.
At proper time, I will call on you for a motion, but let's have other discussion. Reverend Kaiser, is your? No, sir, I'm sorry. All right, you're off. Okay. Number 14. Where is that? All right, Reverend Sessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask a question to the department on this?
Yes, sir.
Now
we don't usually give them a chance to let you ask one question. Where's the department?
There he is.
All right. Okay, there is Tom.
And Mr. Chairman, we've got a. In fact, Representative Morgan and I have a bill we sponsored actually 4 years ago, passed the House, that dealt with a related subject matter. It wasn't texting, but it was sexually explicit crimes that students can commit. It dealt with 7 deadly sins for certain serious violent felonies. Passed the House, got to the Senate, and the department came to us and said, we're prepared to, when Stuart Bennett was the deputy assistant superintendent, we're going to implement this based on the direction that the legislature's expressed, even though it didn't make it to the governor's desk. That's now part of the curriculum. Is this something that would be folded into that curriculum, very likely? Or?
Yes.
Please come to the mic. Would you come to the mic? Wait, we need.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, Representative Setzer, that piece is in the social studies curriculum. Something like this will probably be more into health, with some other issues that we're dealing with. There was another bill proposed dealing with date rape and those kind of issues. It all deals with making good decisions, and this will probably be put into our health curriculum.
And Mr. Chairman, I asked the question because Representative Morgan and I filed HB 230 again this year because even though it's been implemented into the curriculum, there was the discussion that we would mandate it and put it in the code so that future state boards would maintain it over time. I mean, I don't want to be the skunk at the party, but if I sense from the department, they would have preferred that we not enact that into statute because it's already in. There's already a provision for doing this. The department seemed to be very friendly to the notion of doing this, and frankly, I won't say the urging of the department, but the sense that I got from the department was they would have preferred that 230 not go forward through as a statute this year. So I frankly didn't seek to move the bill. Because I believe the felony treatment that students are subject to under things that happen in high schools every day didn't perhaps raise to the level of something we put into statute. Frankly, at least the suggestion, perhaps the oblique suggestion of the department, is this something we could do by resolution, have them implement without putting this into the code? Because I would suggest there's even more severe things we've dealt with that we chose to not put in the code. There's a lot tougher things than this we have contemplated putting in the code that we chose not to because the department, frankly, did it for us. Is this something they couldn't just act on, and that this perhaps could be a resolution instead of a statute?
And that, to the chair of the committee, did the State Department's comment yesterday? Did they have a comment?
No.
Oh, no comments? Okay. So, all right.
And Mr. Chairman, I mean, if this is something that if this notion that we put these kinds of things in the statute, something this committee would entertain, I'd perhaps like to offer an amendment that would adopt the language of HB 230 into it, because we've got very, very similar but even more severe things that our kids are subject to that we contemplated putting in the statute, but decided, you know what, I think the department will do this without a statutory act. So,
Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson, could you make a comment? You hear what's about to happen, and what do you think this department would want?
Well, this summer we're reinitiating our health and PE rules at the department, and for example, Senator Butler had a bill that dealt with that date rape issue, and we're putting all that basically into a toolbox that will cover age appropriately through our health and PE curriculum. So when Representative Setzler talked to me about HB 230, that issue was already addressed through social studies. But a lot of these type issues will be in our health and PE.
What do you think about this specific you hear in this bill?
Yeah, we can handle that.
You know what I'm saying? Do you think we need a law, or what do you think we need?
No, I think we can handle that through our curriculum.
I know you think we can, but will we?
Can't, yes, sir.
Will we? You think we will?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Stay. Y'all both stay there. All right, Representative Dash.
Representative Setzler,
Is your what's your number? 18.
Number 18.
Gotcha.
Do you have a copy of your legislation?
I can get it on your iPad.
All right. Do you have any comment, Representative? You just want to see that first?
It might make sense to put them together.
Yeah. Okay.
And move it on.
All right.
The only reason I didn't push it this year was because the department had substantially complied already. My thinking was, I really believe that as a matter of principle, this is something that ought to be always done, even if it falls out of vogue in 10 years when the new social studies curriculum comes up. There ought to be some force behind it. But at the urging of the department, I sensed they would prefer that we not do that. So I kind of pulled back and didn't push the bill this year. But it's a closely related, but perhaps even more severe set of exposure for our kids. That if the department's in vogue with us doing this, I would submit it's important to add.
All right, let's hear these comments, if you would. Let's get these comments and come on before we make any drastic action. All right, 24, then I'm coming up 28, 11, and 12, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really love this. As a high school teacher, I witness students every day making lifelong mistakes by doing something like this. And I want to say this. I respect what Representative Welch is saying, but to me, what we consider in our minds sexting versus students harming an animal are two different things. To me, them harming an animal needs to be addressed with the law. I mean, that's totally different from sexting. Sexting will last forever. When that child who sends that inappropriate picture at 15 years old to someone who forwards it to 15 other people who forward it on, you're looking at a lifelong damage to that child who, when that child goes to apply for a job within that same community, everybody is going to think about that picture that they saw or that they heard about. It is lifelong. To me, this is crucial. Now, and I also agree with Representative Setzler about his bill. I'm a co-signer on his, that we should be addressing these things with kids in public schools. But if the department is agreeable to do this without us putting this into the law, then I'm good with that. But this needs to be addressed. These kids do not, it's all about instant gratification. It's all about getting the attention of another child. And if that's their means of doing that, they don't think about long term. It's all about the moment. So if we have to put this in statute, I say go for it. But if the department's willing, go for it. But either way, it needs to be done.
28.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As a local counsel to school boards, we routinely put on presentations that deal with this very issue and helping school administrators handle the issue of inappropriate texting and the communication of messages. And so I certainly think this is a very good piece of legislation to work through. And I still think there needs to be a language change to it. But before considering the amendments that Representative Setzler wants us to consider, and it sounds like that there's a need to do that, I'd like to have a copy of that to read and review and consider with this before we take action on both of those simultaneous together. That's
Okay,
all.
good comment. All right. Levin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, there, Representative.
The only thing I would do is to caution us a little bit. The department is able to react quickly as there are changes. Sexting is something that came up very quickly. I mean, all of a sudden, here it was out there for us. They're able to, as a department, get that out and into the schools quicker and make the changes. If we get too explicit in legislation that deals with curriculum, then we tie the department's hands in being able to react to those kinds of things. So I think we need to proceed with a little bit of caution. That's not to say that this isn't something that needs to be dealt with by the department, but let's just not tie their hands to where they can't react as the circumstances change and the next wave of something inappropriate comes down the pike. And it will.
Yes, sir. All right, 12, that's Representative Battle. Wave. 13, that's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this piggybacks on the comments that were previously made. I'm in support of this legislation, and I thought it would move fairly quickly. But the more I sit here and think about it, I guess my question is there a reason why you have that we're just focusing on texting and it doesn't include like emailing or instant messaging or just electronic images in general? Because it's not just, you know, sending a SMS from your phone, but it's on Facebook or MySpace or just over the email in general. Is that already covered under some other program and we're trying to incorporate text messaging, or what's the, I don't know who can best answer that. But
when I came up with this, introducing this legislation, we had students that were released or suspended from school because of the, I guess, sexting images that were sent out. And to keep a child from being suspended for 10 days and have to come back to the tribunal council and have this to follow them throughout the rest of their lives, it's not going to just go away after 10 days. That's where I saw the importance of this. You know, we had the bullying bill that we talked about. We can depend on Department of Education and other agencies to talk about things or hear them say that they're going to implement it. But I do see where this is needed. The Department of Education stated that they will be able to work with this. So I'm not trying to tie their hands in case something else should come up. And as far as the smashing of the animals, I don't see where it falls up under this one. And this to me is an important piece of legislation to go forward. And I would ask that you send it forward. And if we see where the if something should come up later and the department is able to deal with it, that's wonderful. But as far as now is not being dealt with, I know he said that they will deal with it. So I still feel that this is a great piece of legislation to move forward.
All right, let's take a couple more questions. All right, number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Jones, thanks for bringing this. Clearly there's been an issue with that, and I would just offer that instead of, and to echo Representative Taylor, instead of using the word texts, maybe electronic communications or electronic messages, because, you know, texts are all the rage now. Maybe it'll be something like, I don't know, tweet or whatever. You know, but there may be some other medium at some point in next year or 2 years from now, given how fast our technology is changing. So, but with that exception, I think it's definitely something important, and it's something I think the way this is structured, it's been changed from how it was introduced originally. And it seems the way it's structured now is a very effective way of getting that information down to the districts. So,
okay.
Thank you.
22.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In light of the now I'm on. In light of the discussion, if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we hold this and have a chance to perfect it a little bit and see if we need to add things to it. See if the department can take care of it. I don't know how everybody would feel, but I don't know that I'd feel comfortable trying to vote it out, and I certainly don't feel comfortable combining it with legislation I've never read. So I would make a motion that we hold this legislation, we get back with the department and see what they can do, and if we're going to do it, we need to do it maybe a little bit more with a little bit more work.
And we will have a meeting. I'm probably going to call a meeting Monday that we could move it. So I'm just saying. But all right, I have 3 more comments I'm going to take. Then we're going to take. I won't take your motion right now, but I want to hold that. I'm going to take 3 more suggestions. 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just raise a couple of points and reiterate something that Representative Carter said. I, too, am a supporter and I think a co-sponsor of Representative Setzler's bill. But my challenge that I'm having is this author has gone through this process for a year now, from a resolution to a bill, has worked with the department. So I think she's done her due diligence. And so what I'm concerned about is that she's gone through this process and now it's could possibly be tabled. And so I guess what I'm suggesting is that we allow this bill to move forward, and then if we need to address Representative Setzler's bill, which again I am one of the co-sponsors of and fully support, because they're 2 different issues, I think both very important, but because of the process and what she's already done with the department, I would ask that we continue to move this forward. I do like the amendment of electronic communication, maybe amended there, and still leave ourselves open to deal with the other issue that Representative Setzler has brought up.
Very good. All right. Now I'm going to take these 2 questions and we're over. Then we're going to go. Everything went off. Help me, somebody. All right, here we go. Let's see, 17. That is, you've already made yours. You don't have another question?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was just actually going to echo the statement that Representative Morgan made. I mean, we came here to take up this bill, and while those other bills sound great, we know where we are in the process today.
Good. All right, that's good comment. All right, 14. Reverend Setzler, I'll give you one more comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's not as complicated as one might suggest, and I'm not trying to stall the lady's bill. I'd be happy to have her carry this forward. I just made the parenthetical remark. I would suggest that the entire bill of 230 can be incorporated with 1 sentence being added. And I could read the sentence to the committee.
Read the sentence. I'm not saying we'll do it. Just read quickly.
And it's simply this. The State Board of Education shall prescribe a minimum course of study which will include the criminal code in Georgia as it affects minors, with an emphasis on sexual offenses and crimes in which a minor can be charged with a felony and tried as an adult. That's the language. That is the guts of 230. And I had some other prescriptions in there, but that could be folded in as a 149.2. The reason we didn't try to move the bill is because, as I had indicated, and these are conditions in which 13-year-olds can be given criminal sentences with mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we could fold that sentence in and accomplish the bill.
Well, one thing I'm going to do as chair, that's a separate bill. I'm not going to accept that bill. I appreciate it. We want to move that one forward. We can. I agree. We've been dealing with this bill. I think we need to deal with this bill. We either need to amend it if we want to, whatever. That's 2 separate bills, or we need to kill it. So whatever we want to do. So I have, at this point, I'm going to take I had a recommendation for an amendment, a couple of amendments I will take. All right, I'm going to vote on your amendment, though. I'm just saying I made my comment. I'm going to give you a chance to put that on there and let the committee decide. I mean, I'm not going to be that, but I'm going to give you a chance. But we had the last amendment that was presented was this one. So, Reverend Setzler, I'll let you make your amendment, and the committee can decide. All right? What's your amendment?
I would insert after line 22, 20-2-149.2, and language that would read, and Council's seen this, so she's got this. Insert, the State Board of Education shall prescribe a minimum course of study which will include the criminal code in Georgia as it affects minors, and with an emphasis on sexual offenses and on crimes in which a minor can be charged with a felony and tried as an adult, and potential criminal penalties for committing crimes. That's right. the entire bill in 1 sentence.
You hear the amendment? Do I have a second? I have a second. You have the amendment to say, do I have any discussion? I see no discussion, so I call for a vote. All in favor of the amendment being added, please indicate by raising your right hand. I have 4 votes, Janet. All opposed. Oh, no. If you're in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Do y'all hear what the amendment's doing now? All right, you raise your hand. I want to ask Representative Jones, are you in favor of the amendment?
As long as the amendment is not going to cause my bill not to pass, because I feel I have a good bill. And
that's for each and every member to decide for themselves. That is requiring
a course of study that they did not want me to.
You heard my comments earlier, so you heard my comments earlier. So I'll ask any member who's in favor of the amendment, please raise your right hand. Janet, count them. All right, all opposed, raise your hand. And I vote no. So what was the count? So it fails, okay? Next amendment. All right. What number? 28, okay.
Yes, sir, Mr.
What's
Chair.
your amendment?
If I would, with just Representative Thomas, I'm just going to make two amendments to see if they go together. And that
Representative Council, you ready for this? Okay. All right.
just amending line 15 after the word, striking the word text and including electronic communications, striking the word explicit, and inserting the word appropriate. I'm sorry, inappropriate. Inappropriate.
Say that again, please, sir.
Yes.
I liked it too. All right. We could. Let's do two separate amendments. All right, do one. Do the first one.
All right. Well, I'll do mine and then leave.
All right, do yours.
And this would be to on line 15 to strike the word explicit and insert in lieu thereof the word inappropriate, which would give us a broader leniency to the department.
All right, you have that. Line 15, striking explicit and inappropriate, adding inappropriate. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question
Yes.
whenever it's appropriate.
Let's see if do I get a second? No second? All right, what's your question?
The representative stated earlier that he looked up explicit and it included sexual.
Right.
So I'm trying to find out if from Legislative Council, would this still have the same meaning? I don't know if we want to say explicit and inappropriate. But
If the representative would wait, let's see if I get. Okay. I don't think I have a second. It may be not even a point of contention. Do I have a second? I do not have a second. So, what's your next amendment?
If I might
hold it just a second. 27. What's your comment?
No, sir. I just had an amendment.
All right, let's go ahead and take his second amendment. Then I'll come to you. What's your amendment? All right, 28. What's your? Well,
I'm going to follow up with the author's suggestion because I think that's a very good one, and
all right.
And my colleague Representative Kaiser also thinks so as well. So, and that would be to amend line 15 to include after the word explicit, the words and inappropriate.
All right, you see on line 15 after explicit add. What's the word again?
And
inappropriate. All right. And or.
Okay, we'll go with or explicit. It'll say explicit or inappropriate.
Explicit. Shh. He has a right to make his amendment. What is your amendment?
The amendment will be line 15. After the word explicit, insert the words or inappropriate.
Or inappropriate. Betsy, you have that? All right. Do I have a second to that amendment? I have a second. I have a second. Now any discussion. All right. Who wants to make a discussion? Anybody? Anybody have a question? Oh,
I did.
You do, Amy. What's your? All right. What's your?
I'm blinking. Thank you. I'm concerned about the word inappropriate because I was just asking my neighbor here, Representative Dudgeon, if a 15-year-old has a cigarette between their fingers, they're not smoking, but they have a cigarette there, or they have a beer in their hand. Is that inappropriate? I mean, how do you define inappropriate? To me, explicit is very defined. We know what explicit means. But I'm struggling with the word inappropriate.
Wait. Just wait. Okay. All right, I've got one more. 18. Comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I also am concerned about the word inappropriate. Today we didn't know on the floor that there was a legal meaning of obscene in the code. I feel quite certain there's not a legal meaning of inappropriate in the code. So I'm speaking against the amendment.
All right. 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to, me and Ms. Ashman must be on the same page. I was going to say maybe instead of inappropriate, we say obscene. And we weren't texting. That's right.
27.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say I'm not comfortable now, even though I seconded it with inappropriate. But
Well, I really, this is very serious because my
It is, people. This is not a laughing
my 12 and
matter.
13-year-old boys could get in a lot of trouble, and I monitor them pretty closely. So I guess my concern is I feel like we need to find a clearer way to state this, because I agree. You have a definition of explicit, which is clear, plain, straightforward, easily understandable, precise. Then you have a very clear definition of sexually explicit material. So is there really an opposition to the word sexually explicit being in the, I understand sexting because that's a teenager's term, but is there opposition to it really truly saying sexually explicit?
I have no problems with putting it in, but that would
what
be
came up
the last time, and we came up with the word explicit.
Was it held up by our body or by?
It wasn't held up when in talking or discussing the bill with the different departments, and I was told that if can we get another word?
All right, we're beating a dead horse to death. Y'all decide. This horse is trying to gallop. All right, 14. What's your comment?
Mr. Chairman, this is not a criminal offense that we're defining. These are not elements of a crime. So this simply is a direction to the department to do something. So parsing these words matters very much in some of what we do in the legislature.
Right.
It doesn't matter in this bill.
It what? It does.
It matters very much in some of what we do, but does not matter in this bill because it's not an element of a.
That's right. You're exactly right, because we're instructing the department to do something. All right, I forgot where I am now. Do I have a motion on this? What I had? I was taking amendments. Is your amendment still on the table, Mr. Representative Welch? Whose amendment was it? You still have an amendment on the floor? Number 28. Yeah. I have an amendment. I have a motion and a second. All right. So I have a motion and a second. All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. Noes have it. Now, 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer an amendment.
Yes, sir.
On line 15, striking the word texts and inserting electronic communications.
All right. You see on line 15, after sending text featuring, you're going to say insert, what was your word?
Electronic communications.
Electronic communication.
And, Mr. Chairman, that would also take place on line 4 of the bill.
Line 4 of the bill also it would. All right. Betsy, anywhere else it would be placed? All right. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right. Now, what is your wish for? I see no other questions. What's your wish for the bill? What is your wish for the bill? House Bill 267. I have a comment on microphone 20.
Motion.
I have a motion. What's your motion?
My motion is do pass.
I have a motion to do pass as amended. All right. I have a second. Do I have any other discussion? All right. All in favor indicate by saying yes. Yes. All opposed, no. I'm surprised. Unanimous. Okay. It's up to you to get it out of rules. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's go. One more bill. We don't anybody leave. This is probably, you're going to want to hear this one. This is probably going to have more discussion than that one. All right. It's going to be a piece of cake, isn't it, Alicia? Representative Morgan, this is going to be a piece of cake. Moving forward. All right. I'm going to get you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I bring to you House Bill 257, and I'm going to do my abbreviated version of the presentation of this bill. But what we are seeking to do in House Bill 257 is to require districts to create a reduction in force policy. And in that policy, in other words, if they have to do layoffs at the school district level, that when it comes to educators, they will do it based on performance. Currently, there are many districts who use the last in, first out policy, which means if a teacher, whoever's last hired is the one that's first fired, without regard to performance in the classroom. And that is a challenge, of course, because our goal is to keep the best and the most effective teachers in the classroom. It's not at all to say that years of service don't matter. They do. And so in the bill, in the substitute, we are saying that the primary factor would be student performance, and the secondary factor would be years of service. and that is what the bill does. And again, the goal is to end the last in, first out policy and keep the most effective teachers in the classroom. I will say that this bill does a good job of doing two things. It creates a consistent practice across the state, because currently there are several districts who use performance as one of their factors, but as a result of using it as one of their factors, we have seen anecdotally teachers of the year being laid off. That's not what we would like to see. But also it allows still for some local control for districts to create their own policies with this standard in mind, being performance first and other factors being secondary. So with that, I will yield for questions.
All right, I have two. I'll go in this order the way the lights came on. Number 23, is that Representative Maxwell, I think?
I answered fine. I read it down here. I found what I was looking for.
All right, you want to comment on it, or are you fine? You're fine. All right, next was 17, then 18. 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Morgan, we talked a little bit about this morning, and so I'll just ask the question out loud. The concern I have is measured by student academic performance and what that exactly means and how it is implemented. And the example that we shared this morning was, let's say you've got a teacher who's teaching at a very challenging school because there are a lot of non-English speaking families whose children go there, or whatever the reasons. Test performance there is not going to be on par with perhaps another school where, let's say it's in an affluent area, the kids grown up had all the educational opportunities and enhancements available to them. Typically, the teachers teaching there, their students are scoring very well on tests, perhaps because of the great instruction, perhaps not. Measuring these two teachers, who ends up coming out ahead on a measured by student academic performance?
Great question, and the answer that I gave you, and I will state for the committee, is that districts have the ability to use, of course, a teacher's evaluation. And when you look at the evaluation tool now, even though districts have very different ones across the state, districts are able to determine a teacher's performance based on that tool. And so even if you have teachers who at one end of the district have a different set of students, you're still looking at that individual teacher and not comparing them to what's going on the other side of the district. So it's looking at the individual evaluation instrument of a teacher.
And is that evaluation instrument focused specifically and only on student academic performance, or other aspects of their
it does take into
pedagogical
consideration
talents?
Other aspects of their performance.
Right, but this doesn't say to evaluate the teachers based on their evaluations. It's based specifically on academic performance of their students. So I'm just not sure that these sounds like apple and oranges to me. It's my concern.
I would say that within the evaluation tool that is used, districts would be able to garner both the performance and other factors of student achievement. And so again, it would be the tool that is used in the evaluation.
Well, wouldn't it make more sense, I mean, just thinking out loud here, but wouldn't it make more sense to actually use the teacher evaluation as the primary criterion rather than the student achievement? I mean,
well, you ask a good question, and I will tell you that the original bill included some other factors, but in subcommittee it was amended to specifically this.
I see. Thank you.
18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions about RIF policies. How many systems currently have a RIF policy?
To my knowledge, there are about 105 that have some kind of policy, and performance is one of the factors. There are very few of those that performance is the primary factor. So that leaves about 75 districts that have no policy at all, which is also a challenge.
And in your statements, you said that most systems have a policy that uses last in, first out.
Many, yes.
Do they write that into these RIF policies?
There are some. For example, in Clark County, that is their policy, that when they have to do a reduction in force, it is based on years of service. That is
Are there
policy.
others other than Clark?
I believe so. I couldn't quote all of them for you, but it's my understanding that there are others. And as was stated in the subcommittee a couple of days ago, according to the School Board Association representative, which I think is unfortunate, but the statement was made that that is a policy that districts are most comfortable with because they think that's an objective way of looking at it. I think those of us who argue that doing what's in the best interest of the student is more important, using years of service is not exactly the best way to determine the most effective teacher staying in the classroom.
And one last, if I may, Mr. Chairman. How does this legislation fit in with the Fair Dismissal Act? The idea that this talks about 3 years, how does that fit into when we grant people whatever we grant them that sort of like tenure?
Well, it's two different issues, because if this is strictly a performance issue, it has nothing to do with a reduction in force. And so, of course, current law allows for principals or districts to terminate based on the process put in place by fair dismissal. If we're talking about a reduction in force, years of service would play, if this bill passes, it would come into account in a secondary measure.
All right.
So are we looking at lots of lawsuits over, does the fair dismissal law apply, or does this RIF policy apply?
Well, that's a good question. And from the 105 districts that we know that use performance as one of the factors, it was indicated by the School Board Association that there was not an increase in lawsuits last year based on districts that had to make these decisions. And in Cobb County, it's something that we have, and there was not a larger increase in lawsuits as a result.
Thank you.
All right. Staying in order now, 11. That's Representative Dixon.
In this bill, it would seem to me that what we are really considering is teacher performance, one measure of which is student performance. And so I would, at the appropriate time, would probably propose an amendment that would change the wording so that it says a primary factor would be teacher performance, and then it would be up to local systems to determine how they would measure teacher performance.
Okay. Anything else, Reverend Dixon? Is that it? Okay.
Not until the appropriate.
I'm at, I'll come back. Yeah, now where you know, I'm 3, 14, and 25. 3. Bruce Howard?
I think I'm not sure if I heard my answer just a minute ago, Mr. Chairman. We heard this in subcommittee as well, and I've had quite a bit of thoughts about this since that meeting. Who will be the persons or department or local, wherever it may be, that will determine the performance of the teacher?
That's where the evaluation tool comes in. So if you consider what's happening now, aside from RIF, if we're just talking about looking at a teacher's performance and making hiring, firing decisions, districts use the evaluation tool as a measure to determine if they're going to continue a teacher's contract or whatever the outcome is.
So the local boards?
So the local systems have their own evaluation systems that they use.
So what we're doing is giving them something else to put in place?
What we're doing is setting a standard for how their reduction in force for teachers would take place. Because right now, there's very different things that happen in districts.
I guess the question then becomes, the local boards, how familiar, have we heard from any of them?
Yeah, you heard it in the subcommittee, so yeah.
We heard from the School Board Association, but we have not heard, I have not heard directly from districts, and I happen to believe that those could be two different sets of opinions. And again, when we say that there are 105 districts out of 180 that currently have some kind of RIF policy where performance is a factor, we know that this is something that's being done. It's just not being done consistently.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Go ahead, one more question, yeah.
In the subcommittee, there was one of the principals, we found out she was the assistant principal. All right. She gave testimony of how well her school had transitioned from one of the bad schools to a high performance school, and she never did give us any real
Yeah, I think, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't think she was a good example of this bill. So it was two very different issues.
Right, and I want to finish this.
Okay.
And I used her in my comments as an example, but when I really went back to think about it, if they were able to do it, what I was trying to get to in there was, okay, what did they do to get it done? And it sounds like there's already a policy in place, and if so, I guess I would need to hear from someone within the system, if they're here, Mr. Chairman, to tell us how did they do that. And if they did, it sounds like policy was already in place. And would this hinder policy or help policy?
Well, if you're asking me that question, I think it's first important to point out that the testimony that she was giving was really not relevant to this bill. She was talking about the success that they've had in their school as a result of getting the right teachers in place. But they did not do that because she was the assistant principal, and I heard her say that. But they were talking about the process that they use, again, not relevant to this bill that we're talking about. But to answer your question, even districts who use performance as the primary factor, this bill would not hinder. What it will do is make a consistent practice around the state.
Okay, number 14. Let's all pay attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, isn't it true that under the current state of the law, school boards have the ability to have tenure, time in service to be 2, 3, 4 times the significance of student achievement in their evaluation of teachers?
Say that one more time.
Isn't it true that the current state, if we were not to act on this, the current state of the law allows districts to use teacher tenure and time in service as perhaps the exclusive criteria?
Absolutely. That's what's happening in practice. Some have it in their policy, but others, that's what's happening in practice.
No, in the context of a legislature that funds about 50% of education, some districts much more, some a little bit less, but there's substantial state dollars. Do you believe this, as I read this policy, it doesn't seem to be too prescriptive? Do you find this to be overly prescriptive in terms of designating the student achievement's got to be this percentage or that percentage? Doesn't it leave it fairly open?
It does leave it very open for, and especially if the amendment that Representative Dixon wants to put forth passes, it's really allowing for a lot of local control for them to determine what is a teacher's performance.
So isn't it true that if this were to pass, student achievement could be 20 or 25% of the overall evaluation, it would just have to be the highest percentage, and other things would have to be secondary in terms of importance to student achievement. Isn't that true?
That is true. And I will also add that in the research that I've done looking at the New Teacher Project, which focuses on these kinds of issues, teachers were asked what they wanted to be measured by, and some of those factors included absenteeism, tardiness, extra responsibilities. So districts technically could use some of those factors as well in looking at the whole picture of of teacher performance.
One last question, Mr. Chairman. What's more important in the complexity of state education and all the way down to the student? What's more important than student achievement in what we do here?
Absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in the subcommittee, and I'm also co-sponsor of this bill. I appreciate it. Just wanted to clarify a couple of things. There was a sentence in there which was very prescriptive about exactly how the evaluation would include, and most of the speakers and most subcommittee felt that was too prescriptive, so we took it out. And at that point, we added the student achievement language, I think, to believe that we didn't want performance to be interpreted as something very generic that could be used as an out. And so I think Representative Dixon's amendment would be fine. It gets the same point across, probably with better language. But the point I want to make is that at the end of the day, what this will do is keep school systems who've been hiding behind the last in, first out from being able to do that anymore. And at the end of the day, this is a decision made by a superintendent based on the best performance he has at his, or he or she has at his disposal. And there still will be some judgment involved because you're never going to get perfect objective material. So we're just basically giving a thumbs up and a thumbs down to the last in, first out, and making sure that that superintendent and that board is using performance as their primary indicator, and I think that's what we need to do.
Okay. All right, I have no more comments, so what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to have one proposed amendment, then we'll consider the piece of legislation. So this time, Representative Dixon, I will recognize you for your motion.
Okay. On line 16, to strike the word as and to substitute the word one measure of which may be by student academic performance.
Betsy, did you get that? I did. All right, would you repeat it? Representative Dixon, one more time. All right, now listen, everybody get it because we're going to vote on it.
Strike the word as on line 16.
Between years and measured, right?
Right.
All right. So it would read, past 3 years,
comma, one measure of which may be by student academic performance.
All right. Does the author of the bill have an objection to that amendment?
I have a question about it.
All right.
And it's a matter of policy, I guess. I would prefer if it said one measure shall be, because I want to, my concern, and I would like to hear your feedback on this, my concern is that what if you do get a district that considers other things but not the student performance? I think the goal of the subcommittee the other day was to make sure that student performance was a key factor. So I want to make sure that the spirit of that remained, but to also open it up to look at other factors within the teacher's performance.
Well, I think I have more confidence in local systems maybe, but because I think, generally speaking, that's what they're looking for is the teacher's performance, and one of the measure of that is student performance.
All right. All right, we have a motion for the amendment. Read, Betsy, if you would, read the amendment, that entire line for us.
Okay, so line 16 would read, educator over the past 3 years, comma, one measure of which may be student academic performance.
All right, I have a motion for an amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All right, now, do I have any discussion? All right, Representative Setzner?
Mr. Chairman.
On the amendment.
On the amendment. The current state of the law is such that student achievement may be a measure of performance that leads to the evaluation. I mean, may in this, being the operative word, leaves us at the existing state of the law. It doesn't change anything.
No, it doesn't.
How do Mr. Chairman, I've got a question to the author of the amendment.
If I may respond.
Yes, respond.
Because this specifies that you will use as a primary factor teacher performance. It's taking out that permissiveness that you were concerned about.
So to clarify the author of the amendment, what this says is teacher performance shall be the primary, but it doesn't tie teacher performance in any way to student achievement. It leaves it open to whatever the district would want to provide. I mean, I think I just looking for clarity, Mr. Chairman.
All right, go ahead.
I think anybody would recognize that systems, when they're looking for teacher performance, one part of that is going to be a measure of how the students are performing.
All right, I have a comment. I have a motion and a second. You made your comment. Everybody can
Mr.
decide.
Chair, can I make one comment?
You may make one comment.
I just consulted with legislative counsel, and I just want to make sure people know that this is also an option. But to amend the amendment to say shall include but not limited to. So it makes it clear that we want student achievement to be a factor, but also opens it up for other things to be used. And it's not so prescriptive as it was in the original version. Again, my concern, and it's not that I don't trust districts, but I want to be clear with the intent of this bill and to include that language in the bill.
All right, Betsy, help me out. What the author of the bill, she has a right to make that. Is that correct, Betsy? Right. And if she does, that's taken up first. Is that correct? If she gets a second.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
That's correct. And we take that up first. If that's added, then that becomes part of the amendment. The author of the amendment may withdraw or keep his amendment. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
All right, I think it's right.
We don't vote on her amendment?
We have to vote on her amendment to your amendment. That's right. All right, now listen. What we're having to do, that's why I was getting help from legislative counsel. Our author of the bill has the right, and she has, as a member of this committee, to make an amendment to the amendment. And Betsy, if you'll read what her amendment, how it would sound with her amendment to the amendment.
All right, the result of her amendment would
Then I'm going to get a second to that first, all right?
Okay. Would be on line 16, educator of the past 3 years, comma, which shall include but not be limited to student academic performance.
All right, and hers is not limited to, right? All right, do I have a second to the author's amendment? I have a second. So what we're doing, any more discussion? All right, we're voting on the amendment to the amendment. And read the amendment to the amendment one more time, Betsy, so there's no misunderstanding.
All right.
Listen.
The performance of the educator of the past 3 years, one measure of which may be student. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Educator of the past 3 years, which shall include but not be limited to student academic performance.
Not limited to is what we're adding. Everybody understand that? Not limited to.
No,
Am I correct, Betsy?
No, you're adding the word shall.
Shall. I'm adding the word shall, right? Yes. That's what I'm saying. We added the word shall. That's it. All right? To your amendment. Okay? And I have a motion second. All in favor of adding the word shall, please indicate by raising your right hand. Count them, Janet. 1, 2, 3. Raise them high. 4. All right, I have 4. All opposed, raise your hand. All right, let's go again. All in favor, raise your right hand. Raise them high. All opposed, raise your right hand. 5 to 9, it's defeated. All right, now we're back to the original amendment. Would you read the amendment now, Betsy?
All right. Educator of the past 3 years, comma, one measure of which may be student academic performance.
All right, we have the motion and the second already. All in favor, please indicate by saying, raise your right hand. I want to get this. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. Keep them up where she can get them. Keep them up. 10. All opposed, raise your hand. Everybody has to vote. Raise your hands. 3. Is that what? 4. All right, it passes. So the way the bill is now, it's amended. On line 16, Betsy, if you read that one more time, because then I'm going to entertain a motion on the bill.
All right. Educator over the past 3 years, comma, one measure of which may be student academic performance.
All right, we've discussed this and discussed this. Is there any? I'll give the author of the bill 1 minute to make a summary statement.
I'll just say that this bill is about doing what's in the best interest of kids, which is keeping the most effective teachers in the classroom. Even with the amendment, which I'm not excited about, it still keeps the spirit of the bill, which is to make performance the primary factor. And so with that, I would ask your favorable consideration.
All right. Do I hear a motion? I have a do pass motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor of House Bill 257 as amended, please indicate by raising your right hand. Hey, I think it's unanimous. All right. Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Let me tell y'all a little something I've heard. Is this true? Tom, you may know more about it than I do. Or Amy, you may know. Do y'all think we'll be in session on the 24th or 25th? Are we going to be out? Ma'am, the reason I say, Josh, are you here? Our dinner is what day? The 23rd? We're still going the 23rd. If we happen to be out on the 24th, stay around. We're going to have dinner and you can go home. Yes, Amy.
I also want to remind everyone that
Listen.
this Tuesday, while we're out at
2 o'clock, Bob Swigum with the DOE has invited all of us to come to see the contract system that he has in place at the DOE where they make the contracts. I know several of y'all had questions about how DOE makes its contracts, but he would love to show us a demonstration of it at 2 o'clock on Tuesday.
This is next Tuesday, right?
The 15th.
2 o'clock. We'll be out, but we'll be back in Wednesday for the crossover day, so that's a good day. Anybody have a comment for the good of the order? All right, thank you. Have a great day. See y'all in the morning. Thank you.